In early June of 1944, southern England stood on the edge of history. For months, soldiers from the United States, Britain, Canada, and other allied nations had been gathering in camps across the countryside. Fields were filled with rows of tents. Trucks rumbled down narrow village roads. Airfields overflowed with transport planes and gliders. Harbors were packed so tightly with ships that from above, the water seemed almost invisible beneath steel hulls. Everyone knew something enormous was coming. For nearly 4 years, Nazi Germany had dominated Western Europe. France had fallen in 1940. Coastal defenses stretched from Norway to Spain. Concrete bunkers, artillery batteries, mines, and barbed wire formed what the Germans called the Atlantic Wall. The Allies needed to break it. The operation to invade France was given a name: Operation Overlord. It would become the largest amphibious invasion in human history. But first, they needed the right conditions. Weather forecasts became critical. The English Channel was unpredictable, and a full moon was required to guide airborne troops. Originally scheduled for June 5th, the invasion was delayed by rough seas and heavy cloud cover. Commanders faced a painful decision: postpone again or move forward through uncertain weather. They chose to go. Late on June 5th, thousands of ships began moving silently out of British ports. Destroyers, cruisers, troop transports, landing ships, and small wooden landing craft formed an armada unlike anything the world had ever seen. More than 5,000 vessels crossed the channel that night. Above them, aircraft engines roared to life. Shortly after midnight on June 6th, the invasion truly began, not on the beaches, but in the skies. Thousands of paratroopers boarded transport planes. Inside the aircraft, red lights glowed dimly. Men checked their rifles one last time. Some wrote quick notes to loved ones. Others sat in silence, listening to the steady drone of engines. As they approached the French coast, anti-aircraft fire exploded around them. The sky lit up with flashes of orange and white. Planes shook violently as flak burst nearby. Then, the green lights switched on. Paratroopers jumped into the darkness. Many missed their designated drop zones. Strong winds scattered them across miles of countryside. Some landed in flooded fields deliberately prepared by German forces. Others came down in trees or farmyards. Units were separated. Officers were missing. Radios were lost. But small groups quickly formed in the dark. Guided by training and instinct, they began carrying out their missions, destroying bridges, cutting communication lines, capturing crossroads, and delaying German reinforcements. Gliders followed, landing silently in fields under heavy fire. Some crashed violently. Others delivered troops precisely onto key objectives. Behind enemy lines, confusion spread. At sea, dawn slowly approached. The invasion fleet stretched across the horizon. Soldiers crowded inside landing craft struggled with seasickness as waves slammed against metal hulls. Many had never been in combat before. The waiting was almost unbearable. At approximately 5:30 in the morning, Allied warships opened fire. The thunder of naval guns shook the water. Massive shells screamed through the air and slammed into coastal defenses. Smoke and debris rose from the cliffs of Normandy. Bombers passed overhead, dropping explosives in an attempt to weaken German positions. But many defenses survived. As the bombardment lifted, the first wave of landing craft moved toward 5 designated beaches: Utah and Omaha for the Americans, Gold and Sword for the British, and Juneau for the Canadians. At Utah Beach, strong currents pushed the landing craft off course. Instead of landing directly on their intended target, American troops came ashore slightly to the south. Unexpectedly, this mistake reduced their exposure to the heaviest defenses. Resistance was lighter than feared. Units regrouped quickly and advanced inland to link up with airborne forces. Gold Beach saw British troops push through fortified villages and artillery positions. Engineers cleared mines under fire. Tanks specially designed for amphibious landings rolled onto the sand, providing crucial support. At Juno Beach, Canadian forces faced intense resistance. The first wave suffered heavy casualties as machine guns swept the shoreline. Despite this, the Canadians advanced farther inland on D-Day than any other Allied force. Sword Beach became a race against time. British troops moved quickly to capture key objectives, but were soon counterattacked by German armored units. Fierce fighting continued throughout the day. Then, there was Omaha Beach. Omaha was different. Steep bluffs overlooked the narrow shoreline. German defenses were well positioned, with overlapping fields of fire. Concrete bunkers were reinforced with steel and earth. Machine guns covered every approach. As landing craft approached, rough seas swamped many of the amphibious tanks meant to support infantry. Bombing runs had missed key targets. When the ramps dropped, soldiers were exposed to devastating fire. Men fell immediately. Some were shot before they could step into the water. Others were weighed down with heavy packs and drowned in the surf. Bullets struck the metal ramps, sending sparks into the air. Explosions churned sand and water together in violent bursts. Yet, gradually, small groups began to organize. Individual acts of leadership made the difference. Soldiers crawled forward under fire, using craters and obstacles for cover. Engineers blasted gaps in barbed wire. Infantrymen climbed narrow gullies through the cliffs, attacking bunkers from behind. One position after another was silenced in brutal close combat. By afternoon, the breakthrough began. Across all 5 beaches, the Allies had secured a fragile foothold. Supplies continued pouring ashore: vehicles, artillery, fuel, ammunition. Temporary harbors would soon be assembled to sustain the invasion. But the battle for Normandy was far from over. Inland, the landscape posed new challenges. Thick hedgerows divided farmland into tight enclosures, creating natural defensive walls. German troops used these to stage ambushes and slow the Allied advance. Every field became a battlefield. Progress was measured in yards. German commanders struggled to respond effectively. Confusion about the true location of the main invasion delayed reinforcements. Many still believed a larger assault would come at Pas-de-Calais. This hesitation proved critical. Throughout June and July, fierce fighting continued. Towns were reduced to rubble. Civilian populations were caught in the crossfire. Air superiority allowed Allied forces to strike German movements during daylight, gradually weakening their ability to counterattack. By late July, a major breakthrough finally occurred, allowing Allied forces to push rapidly across northern France. In August 1944, Paris was liberated. Crowds filled the streets as Allied troops entered the city. After 4 years of occupation, the French capital was free. The human cost of D-Day and the Normandy campaign was immense. On June 6th alone, approximately 4,400 Allied troops were killed. Thousands more were wounded or missing. German casualties were also severe. In the weeks that followed, tens of thousands more lives would be lost on both sides. But the strategic impact was undeniable. The Western Front was open. Less than a year later, in May 1945, Nazi Germany surrendered. The war in Europe was over. D-Day did not win the war in a single day. It did not end suffering overnight, but it marked the decisive beginning of the end for Hitler's control of Western Europe. It was a moment built on extraordinary coordination and extraordinary courage. Young men stepped off boats into gunfire. Pilots flew through walls of flak. Sailors crossed dangerous waters. Medics ran into open fire to save the wounded. Engineers cleared mines by hand. Ordinary individuals faced overwhelming odds. June 6, 1944 became more than a military operation. It became a symbol of sacrifice, determination, and unity among nations determined to defeat tyranny. The beaches of Normandy, once quiet stretches of sand, became sacred ground. And the world would never be the same.